Hey, what's going on everybody? Commander Crane here, and we are back with another Pioneer video. And today, we're going to be talking about 10 blue-red budget decks that are perfect for the Pioneer format. But these decks are also perfect for people that are looking to maybe just expand their deck collection regardless of format. It's also a great opportunity for people that are new to the game and are maybe just, looking to pick up some decks to obviously expand the overall, library, but maybe you just want to build an Izzet deck and you're looking for inspiration. Any of these 10 decks will be perfect for you. So a few things before we also hop into the video here. I have to mention that all these decks are Izzet. Every single spell needs to be able to be cast by a blue-red dual land. It also needs to be less than $50 because after all, we are playing budget decks, and Magic can be pricey, and I think $50 is a very good starting point. A flavorful theme. Not to say that some of the decks aren't just like generically like good cards, but pretty much all the decks are going to have some good synergy together with all the different cards, and you'll learn with Izzet that Izzet is very good at spells matters, playing a lot of cheap spells in one turn to trigger all of our different cards. You'll learn that very quickly. And then all these decks need to be easy for new players. Not to say that experienced players won't enjoy playing these cards, just that, we're not really playing any cards that have like word soup or anything on them. Okay, so let's go and hop into here. So the first deck that we have to talk about today is one of the best decks in the entire metagame, and that is Izzet Phoenix, which the best part about this deck is I had to make very, very few cuts with the non-land cards. Really, the only cut I honestly made was like some decks still play Ledger Shredder, but most have moved to Kori Steelcutter. But I'm playing Thing in the Ice instead, just because enters with 4 time counters, or 4 ice counters, and then when it loses all those ice counters, it becomes a 7/8 that bounces all all non-horrors to play. But what we're trying to do with this deck is we're trying to put Arclight Phoenix into the graveyard, cast a bunch of really cheap instants and sorcerers. Actually, in this case, I think it's pretty much all instants except for Sleight of Hand and Treasure Cruise. But we're trying to cast a whole bunch of spells in one turn. Ideally 3, return the Phoenixes back to the graveyard, back from the graveyard, and then attack our opponent for the win. That's what we're trying to do with Izzet Phoenix, and Artist Talent is the most expensive card in the entire deck. It was tricky to fit that in there, but we ended up making it work, which is good because the card is awesome. So yeah, Izzet Phoenix, one of the best decks in the entire format. So the next deck that we have to talk about today is Izzet Prowess, which is a Spells Matters deck, but it's a slightly more aggressive version of this. So obviously, you're playing cards like Sprite Dragon. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on it. We're also playing a whole bunch of other cards that care about instants and sorceries like Monastery Swiftspear, Soulscar Mage, and Stormwing Entity. A card that used to see a lot of play. It doesn't see as much play anymore, unfortunately, because the card is just awesome. I love Stormwing Entity, and I knew I had to feature it in a deck today. But yeah, it's basically just a blue-red, cast a bunch of instants and sorceries, have some cheap prowess creatures, and win the game. So the next one that we have to talk about is Izzet Pyromancer, which is a slightly different variant of all these different Spells Matters decks. Obviously we have like more of like a, bring things back from the graveyard variant, and then obviously we just had the aggro version. Now we're playing just Pyromancer, where we're going to make a ton of tokens. So using Young Pyromancer and Third Path Iconoclast, we're going to cast a whole bunch of non-creature spells, and then make a whole bunch of tokens, and just kind of slowly win the game that way. We also get to play Of One Mind, which is a sweet card. It's 3 mana to draw 2, but if we control a human and a non-human, we can play it for only 1 mana, and just with Young Pyromancer and Third Path Iconoclast, we can do that all by itself, just because, we obviously have an Elemental or a Soldier in play, and it works really, really well. So yeah, Izzet Pyromancer, definitely one of my favorite decks that I shared here today. So the next one that we have to talk about is Izzet Ensoul, a deck that's been very good in the metagame for quite some time. It kind of has, its ebbs and flows, but it did just get the brand new Nutrient block from Edge of Eternities, which is a very good indestructible artifact, which makes our cards like Ensoul Artifact and Zoetic Glyph even more powerful. It turns Enchanted Artifact into a creature with base power and toughness 5/5, except with Zoetic Glyph it's a 5/4, and then we get to discover 3 when it's put into a graveyard. But this deck's just awesome. We're playing some cheap artifacts like Bomat Courier, Gingerbrute, which is really hard to block, and then we're playing Voldaren Epicure and Spyglass Siren that make artifacts that we can animate, and then we try to win the game with a card like Shrapnel Blast. We chip in for 5 a few times, and then we start Shrapnel Blasting, and we get them out of the game. I really love this deck. Izzet Ensoul is a really fun deck, and I don't blame people if they like playing it. So the next one that I have to talk about also features an artifact, but I would not consider this an artifact deck. So is it creativity? So unlike the regular creativity decks that try to, cheat in like Xenagos Worldspine Worm or something like that, this is more of an is it control deck that is looking to always hit Torrential Gearhulk with the Indomitable creativity. So obviously you use cards like, Big Score and Deduce to put artifacts into play, as well as Magma Opus, and then we're trying to flash back instants from our graveyard for 0 mana. Ideally, we cast a card like Magma Opus, where it deals 4 damage divided, you tap 2 permanents and make a 4/4 elemental and draw 2 cards. That's kind of what we're trying to flash back, but there's also some really good instants, like Prismari Command, Big Score, Sublime Epiphany that we can flash back that are also very, very strong. But yeah, huge fan of this deck. I used to see a lot of people in my area play this at the local Pioneer RCQs when those were going on, because this deck was it was a pretty sweet deck. Torrential Gearhulk is just an awesome card, and it's nice to play a, is it control deck that is not just like generic like removal and counter spells. It's a little bit different than that. So definitely a huge fan of this deck. Okay, so now we've hit the point that we're going to talk about all the different creature type matters decks. And why not talk about one of the most popular ones, that being Izzet Wizards? So what we're trying to do is play a whole bunch of cheap prowess creatures similar to the regular prowess deck, but we have some cards that really synergize with wizards. So obviously we have Balmor, which is a wizard that says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain trample until end of turn. We also have Adeliz the Cinderwind. Whenever we cast an instant or sorcery, wizards get +1/+1. But we also have Wizard's Lightning, which is 3 mana, deal 3 damage to any target. But if we control a wizard, it deals 3 damage to any target for only 1 mana. So basically we get to play Lightning Bolt, which is awesome. And then from there it's just, opt, consider, Treasure Cruise, Burst Lightning, like a pretty self-explanatory, Izzet prowess deck. But huge fan of this deck. I have always loved wizards, and honestly there's a couple wizards that I didn't include here today that also are worthy of being included. Wizards is definitely very, very fun. So the next one I have to talk about is Izzet Drakes? It's not so much that this is like a, like a tribal deck, but I wanted to include it just because, we're playing 8 Drakes in this list. We're also playing Tolarian Terror because I think it fits the theme of this deck very, very well. But what we're trying to do is put a whole bunch of instants and sorceries in our graveyard, similar to the rest of these decks, and play Treasure Cruise. But most notably, obviously we have Crackling Drake, which counts the power, its power is equal to the number of cards, are instant sorceries in your exile and in your graveyard. So obviously with Treasure Cruise, it doesn't lose any power or toughness. Enigma Drake can a little bit from there, but that's totally fine because we can fill our graveyard back up no problem. But huge fan of Izzet Drakes. I think this deck is just really, really fun. It's something that I've seen a lot of people play over the years and highly enjoy. I like to consider this deck like an alternate to Arclight Phoenix. So if you're looking to play a slightly more grindy deck, this is definitely the deck you'd want to play instead of Izzet Phoenix. So the next one I have to talk about, speaking of big flyers, we have Izzet Dragon Control, a deck that I made not that long ago, and this deck was really, really fun when I built it. I played a little bit on Arena. It's super fun. Obviously, we try to take advantage of beholding a dragon, which is revealing a dragon from our hand, to get additional value from cards like Dragon's Fire and Dispelling Exile, which, getting a good extra counter spell or good extra removal for playing some dragons is fantastic. Then, once we control the board, we play one of these big dragons and try to win the game, just because they have some really nice abilities, most notably Niv Mizzet Perrin, as well as Marang River Regent. Huge fan of this deck. I love playing dragons, and I knew I had to feature a dragon deck here today. So the next one, following the theme of, flyers, we're playing Izzet Fairies. So I built a fairy list a while ago, and I originally tried to make it an Improbable Alliance deck, and it really was not that. And I knew when I wanted to share a fairy list today, I knew I wanted to try to make it an Improbable Alliance deck. So whenever you draw your second card each turn, make a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying. So then what we did is we're also pairing with Fairy Vandal. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Fairy Vandal. And then from there, it's just a whole bunch of really good spells that obviously are like cheap counter spells, but also some extra draw spells like Charter Course, as well as Izzet Charm and Treasure Cruise. And we're also playing Fairy Miscreant, which if we control another Fairy Miscreant, we draw a card. So that's what we're trying to do in this deck. Just draw extra cards to make a bunch of cheap, fairies and win the game from there. I really hope that we get some more fairy support in the upcoming Lorwyn set that comes out early next year, just because fairies is a deck that is really close from being like top tier. It just needs a little bit of help. So yeah, Izzet Fairies, definitely a very fun list that I shared today. And the last deck that we have to talk about is arguably my favorite deck of the bunch of all these Izzet decks. It's a deck that I shared a while ago, and I've always thought this deck was really fun to play. And that is Izzet Pirates. So Pirates is kind of gone through a few different renditions since it became a creature type in Ixalan. Originally, it was just kind of like a, turn the deck sideways kind of thing. Like, it really didn't have that much tempo or anything like that. But in Aether Drift, we got two new cards, Mirani Mako and Scrounging Skyray, that love it when we discard cards. So we turn this into like an Izzet aggro like madness kind of deck that like wants us to discard cards to get additional value from Mirani Mako and Scrounging Skyray. And then we're also playing Inti. It is not a pirate, but the card is just absolutely insane, so that's why we're playing it. We also get to play the new Fearless Swashbuckler that gives our vehicles haste, so that's why we play Smuggler's Copter and Boosted Sloop that also let us discard cards, which fits the entire theme of the whole deck here. So definitely a huge fan of Izzet Pirates. Definitely not a deck that I think most people expected to see on here, but it's a really, really fun deck. And the cool thing too is if you do build this deck, almost all these cards are in standard. The only ones that are not is obviously Smuggler's Copter, Lightning Axe, and Izzet Charm, but you can substitute those with like Charter Course, for instance. Like, there's a lot of really good substitutes for this deck, but otherwise most of it isn't standard as of the recording of this video. But yeah, let me know in the comment section below, what do you think about these decks? If there's a specific one that you're thinking about building, or one that you think is really fun, or let me know if there's a specific Izzet deck that I should have included in this video. Just let me know what you think in the comment section. And that takes us to the end of the video here. Thanks so much for watching. The deck lists are in the description below if you'd like to check them out for yourself. Huge shout out to our channel members, Ralph, Matt, Arcadius, Ray, Gary, Sarwanoki, Michael D, our premium channel member, The Common Cold, Jeremy P, and BG Stilts. If you're interested in being a channel member, it starts at $1 US a month, and you gain access to the exclusive Commander Crane Discord, as well as other features here on the channel. So, I'm Commander Crane, thanks for watching this video, and hope to catch you in the next one.